Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right then. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is Sunday, June 4th of 2023. I am Reverend Dr. Kate R. Walker, truly honored to serve as your minister. I use the pronouns she, her. And for those with visual disability, I'm a 60-year-old white female with light brown hair and a pixie cut. I wear glasses. I am wearing a dark blue blouse with a pink stole today. And you look like a garden to me, with your beauty shining for everybody. You are welcome here, my garden. You are welcome here. Whether you are watching now on YouTube or some point in the future, you are welcome as well. Brand new people, welcome. Delighted to have you here. We would love to be in touch. If you are on YouTube, please make sure after the service you check out our website. Down at the bottom of the main page is a form to start getting our newsletter, but send us an email, introduce yourself. We'd love to be in touch. And if you are here in person and would like to get on our mailing list, there is a welcome table in the garden lobby right through those doors, and we'd be happy to take your information, and you can start finding out all the wonderful things that are going on in this community. Just as you are welcome. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are liberal religious, radically welcome, where diversity is celebrated, questions are expected, and sometimes we even know the answers. If this is your first time and you would like, any point, if you would like conversations, we'll have a social hour directly following the service. I think it's downstairs under the undercraft, but if you see a lot of people drinking coffee out in the garden, go out there. But follow the smell of the coffee and tea and the conversation. And on YouTube, we have a small but dedicated group. If you would like to join in a live Zoom conversation, send an email to First Unitarian Pittsburgh. That's one word, firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com, and you'll get an auto response with the Zoom link. I have a few announcements because this is such an active community, always something going on with curiosity and need for connection. And today it is our flower communion service. And if you have not already, if you brought flowers, and if you have not already, feel free to bring your flowers to the baskets down here in front of me. And if you're shy, just wait till the opening hymn, and you can do it during the hymn. And if you thought, oh, golly, I forgot to bring flowers, not a problem. Or if you didn't know you were supposed to bring flowers, not a problem. This is a community where all are welcome, and sometimes we come with empty bellies that need to be filled. So we will complete our ceremony of communion with flowers at the end of the service, and everyone is welcome to come and take a different flower than the one you brought or the one that you left on the kitchen counter. And we will be happy to send everyone home with a flower today. We have plenty of extra flowers, as always. The annual picnic, which until recently I didn't know was an annual event, but there is apparently an annual picnic. I scheduled it for Friday, this Friday on the 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. It is at Shenley Park at Bartlett Playground. I invite you to please, 6 to 8 p.m. we have the picnic cover area gathered. Bring your baskets, bring your food, bring your games, bring your laughter, bring your children, bring somebody else's children. But just come and have fun. 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday evening. And I will be honest, a few of you are aware that I wanted to do this picnic because I love picnics. And on this Wednesday, I'm going to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of my ordination. So you're invited all to my celebration. So, yeah, so kind of a wild trip it has been. So I invite you now to arrive in body and spirit as we turn forward into our worship space. And we turn to our chalice lighting. The symbol of our faith is Unitarian Universalists. And this is a reminder that every dogwood has its day, but thistle will be a beautiful day. Even while we wonder what incarnation, every daisy is better because of you. because a peony saved is a peony earned.
We celebrate the colors of the beautiful flowers, the colors of the beautiful banners, the trans pride flag, the gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, queer pride flag, the Brown Lives Matter pride flag. We have them on display this morning. Many of you were at the festival today. We celebrate all the colors today. Our opening song is the Mexican folk song, De Colores. I invite you to rise in body and spirit, and we will sing 3 verses in English and 1 verso en español, por favor, as best you can. Please sing out loud. The words are in your order of service.
Good morning, buenos dias. Today we're going to be reading the principles of First Unitarian Universalist Church in Espanol. They are printed in your program in Spanish. I'm going to read them slowly, and if you're comfortable, please follow along with me. If not, you can just feel them in your heart. Nosotros convenimos en afirmar y fomentar. Número 1. El valor y la dignidad propia de cada persona. Número 2. La justicia, equidad y compasión en las relaciones humanas. Número 3. La aceptación de uno al otro y el estímulo al crecimiento espiritual en nuestras congregaciones. Número 4. Una búsqueda libre y responsable por la verdad y el sentido. 5. El derecho de la conciencia y el uso del proceso democrático dentro de nuestras congregaciones y en la sociedad en general. 6. La meta de una comunidad mundial con paz, libertad y justicia para todos. 7. El respeto por el tejido interdependiente de todo lo existente, del cual somos una parte. Y 8. El camino hacia la integridad espiritual para construir una comunidad amada, diversa y multicultural a través de nuestras acciones responsables que desmantelan el racismo y otras opresiones en nosotros y en nuestras instituciones. Gracias.
That was easy. For anybody who heard me stumbling over there. I have a different story that I found that just seemed more perfect for today, and it's based on a true story called Xochitl and the Flowers. So it's different from what's printed in your order of service. And I will leave this book on the welcome desk for anybody who might want to look at the pictures afterward. Here in this neighborhood, far from El Salvador, everyone knows us as the Flower family because our last name is Flores. They call my mommy Doña Severia Flores, that's Mrs. Flowers. My papi, Don Obdulio Flores, Mr. Flowers, and me, Xochitl, the Flores flower girl. When we lived in El Salvador, my grandfather Ruben cheerfully told me that Xochitl means flower in the Nahuatl language, which is the native. A long, long time ago, he told me, long before the Spaniards even dreamed of coming to our land, our ancestors, the Nahuatl Indians, just like you, lived here. We named you Xochitl in their honor. In the teeny San Francisco apartment where we live now with our Uncle Benjamin and Aunt Candelaria, I miss El Salvador. I miss the weekends when I sat in our garden with my mommy and papi, arranging bouquets of flowers. Over there, flowers, our flowers, made everyone happy. When Fidel married Rosa, we decked out their house like a garden. When Grillito, the shoemaker's dog, died, we made him a big, beautiful bouquet. And for Lala Osorio's 15th birthday, her family asked us to make 15 nosegays for her 15 friends. Here, days go by, slow as turtles. At night, I hear my mommy tell my papi about the flower shop she'd like to have in this country. My mommy works every day, cleaning houses with Aunt Candelaria. On weekends, they take me along. My papi paints houses or works anywhere he can. And I draw flowers or write letters to grandparents, neighbors, and friends in El Salvador. In school, I can already say a few sentences in English. I practice them when I'm alone. I probably seem a little crazy when I ask myself, how are you? My name is Xochitl. Do you like flowers? One afternoon, my mommy brings home a pail full of lovely white roses and red roses, sunflowers, and freckle-faced stargazer lilies. Xochitl, I'm going to sell flowers, she says, and I'm so happy. Look at how the blossoms bounce. Can I help you, I ask. Of course, Xochitl, she smiles. Later that day, my mommy and I sell flowers on the street. She fills a small bucket with water and sprays of roses. It's light enough for me to carry. I feel like a butterfly. With the flowers and my mommy by my side, I have everything I need. In the flowers, I see my abuelitos, my neighbors, and everything we left behind in El Salvador. We go in and out of restaurants and stores asking, do you want flowers? We have roses, lilies, and sunflowers. Which would you like? Every day, we meet more and more neighbors, and they get to know us. In the coffee shop on the corner, we make friends with Mr. Awad, the Arab-American man with the small eyes and the big smile. When Don Prudencio, the mariachi guitarist, sees us anywhere at all, he stops to talk. And Doña Ivania, the owner of El Trebol, the restaurant with the glass door, lets us sell flowers to her customers. I like selling flowers, but when we get home late at night, my mommy and I have to soak our feet in the tub. That's how tired we are. No sooner than done. The next Saturday, I think I skipped a page, sorry. Okay, yeah. One Saturday morning, while the three of us arrange flower bouquets, my poppy tells us, I've got a big surprise for you. Tell me what it is, I beg. What's this huge surprise? My mommy asked. My poppy opens his eyes wide and announces, I found an apartment that has a yard in the back. The yard's filled with garbage right now, but if the three of us work hard, we can turn it into a nursery and sell flowers and plants. Flowers and plants, my mommy and I repeat, both of us at the same time. Afterwards, we're silent. There's so much going through our heads as we don't know what to say. No sooner said than done. The next Saturday, my poppy borrows my Uncle Benjamin's blue truck, and the moving and cleaning begin. What a garbage heap, my mommy says. We make 3 trips to the dump. We throw out tires, pieces of iron, cardboard, glass, sand, part of a bed, and even a refrigerator door. And Don Prudencia, who comes to help us out, selects the best pieces of woods. Mr. Awad paints them and makes tables. With the big and little stones that a neighbor gave us, we make paths. We bring in soil and arrange little clay frogs. And Doña Ivania gives my mommy 2 parakeets as a present, and right away the yard begins to fill with music. My mommy is delighted. It's like magic, this forsaken place coming to life, she says happily. Now it's clean and pretty and ready for flowers and plants to come live here. Early Sunday morning, we buy yellow, white, and red roses. We buy flowers with blossoms as blue-red as El Salvador evenings, calla lilies like white trumpets, sunflowers, small green chili plants, and dwarf lemon trees on which ants circle the world in just a few minutes. We buy aloe, magic green stars, and sweet, oh so sweet peppermint. My poppy paints a sign on the white sheet. It says, Grand Opening Day Sale, prices you can't refuse. Come and get them, Ochito flowers and plants. Finally, everything is ready. Don Prudencio has brought his musician friends. They sing country songs, my mommy's favorite. Balloons of different colors sway in the breeze among the flowers and plants. A plump and pretty neighbor makes a huge pot of sweet horchata drink for the customers who are about to arrive. Neighbors come in, new friends, everything is going wonderfully, when suddenly, in the midst of all the celebration, a man appears, tall and bearded, his skin the color of ashes. He has a piece of paper in his hand, and he shouts in an angry voice, "What do you think you're doing here? What are you doing here? This is a residential neighborhood. It's not a place for entertaining strangers and not a place for a business." He shows us the letter he's carrying. "First thing tomorrow, I'm letting the authorities know what you're up to." Turns out he's Don Roberto, the owner of our little lot, and he doesn't want us to set up our business. "We're honest working people," my poppy answers him, but Don Roberto is too angry to listen, and he just leaves. And we all have tears in our eyes. "This isn't fair," Don Prudencio says. "We won't allow this," my aunt says. "We'll fight it," Mr. Awad shouts in the little bit of Spanish that he knows. The neighbors make a circle and put their heads together. Suddenly one man says, "Doña Candelaria should do the talking." "Yes, yes," the neighbors shout, and Doña Ivania adds, "And I'm going to go home to get something very special." But Mommy, Poppy, and I are so sad that we don't even notice when they all leave together. hours later, while my mommy and Poppy and I are slowly cleaning what's still left of our lovely nursery, we hear voices coming closer. It's the neighbors. And with them is Don Roberto, the landlord, who has a green parakeet on his shoulder. It's nibbling on his ear. We went to Don Roberto's house, my Uncle Benjamin says. We pleaded with him as good neighbors. We explained that a nursery was better than a garbage heap. And I gave him a gift, a parakeet to soften his heart, Doña Ivania says. The yard starts to fill with music once more. I told them you could stay here, Don Roberto says, just as long as you let me and my parakeet come see the flowers. In my country, I had a bird just like this one, but it flew away. A smile blooms on his lips like a flower. And my mommy and I look at the flowers that are on our bed and smile and watch as the snails go by, carrying their little homes on their backs.
Unfortunately, our guest speaker for Share the Plate wasn't able to be here, but Mary Dennison has some good words.
I am a member of the Share the Plate committee, and I'm a parent now of a trans woman. And I wanted to share that because I think it's very relevant to what we're celebrating today, that everyone is valued, and that also is the topic for our Share the Plate this month. And I wanted to tell you really quickly her story. She grew up in Arkansas, and as she realized that she was actually a woman in her body, she needed to transition, and she started that process in her hometown and lost everything. Her mother, her father, her job, her siblings, everyone turned away from her, all her friends, and she moved to Washington, D.C. and was homeless for a while. And I think that is a very typical story. I have to tell you the happy ending to that. Her mother did come to her wedding, to my daughter, and that was lovely. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Trans United, which is a Pittsburgh organization to support individuals just like my daughter-in-law who are going through difficult times. Trans United is a Black trans femme-led local nonprofit that centers and uplifts Black trans and gender nonconforming community members through mutual aid and workshops, job support, entrepreneurial training, housing assistance, and short-term shelter through Haven House. The average stay is 3 months, although they have had people stay for as much as 9 months. 82% of the people who have entered our Haven House programming have completed and moved on to their next best step. Since the opening of Haven House, they've served 17 trans and non-binary young adults between the ages of 18 and 30. And in collaboration with Proud Haven, they've served over 50 youth last year with drop-in services, workshops, and all sorts of supports that go with that. In 2022, they provided emergency 3-day hotel stays for over 50 folks in the area. And they've served over 500 Black, queer, and trans youth with their new My House programming focused on bringing HIV prevention to the community and not only expecting them to come to Proud Haven. My House events focus on safer spaces for Black and brown, queer, and trans folks to gather, provide HIV testing on site, and can manifest in any way, in any number of ways to keep the community engaged, including, but not limited to, parties, Vogue nights, barbershop talk, university kiki balls, and more. They also have a program called Navigating Systems, which works directly with the shelter residents and other community members in housing programs that create learning opportunities around basic life skills like filling out a resume and interview. The rest of their information is on the back of your order of service, and I would hope that you would be generous and supportive of this community that is so attacked at this time in our country. So we would want Pittsburgh to be a city where people can feel safe. Thank you.
Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please check the end of the order of service for more directions.
We have so many joys today in this time and space. With the music, really a big shout out to Chris and Alan and Coro Latino Americano and the youth quintet. And what a joy to bring into our lives today. And I have to say a shout out to Mary Redford for organizing yesterday, our presence in the Pride Parade. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful showing, a gathering of Unitarian Universalists from our church and from the North Hills Church, from Allegheny, from Sunny Hill, from East Suburban. It was just really delightful, and the crowd was, it was just lovely. And I was wearing a clergy collar, and at least twice people came up to me and said, "What church are you from?" With my bright yellow Side of Love color. And people are like, "I've never seen that color before." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's copyrighted." It was a glorious day, but we also know there are many sorrows in our lives. There are many sorrows, and we gather these into our heart and into our souls. And this is who we are as human beings. We are celebrating a birthday, Chris Michael's birthday today. Great joy, always a great joy, and delighted to have another trip around the sun with you. For all of those of you who are carrying your joys and your sorrows silently in the sanctuary of your hearts, please remember that we do not journey alone. I invite you into a few moments of silence for meditation and personal prayer. Spirit of love, hold us with your warm embrace. Give us your strength and sustenance as we journey through life. We seek those moments of tenderness and those moments of resilience. We carry the beauty of life today, symbolized by our flowers, celebrating the many colors, the many races and genders and sexualities and expressions of who we are in this world. We hold up the whole spectrum of the LGBTQIA growing community, providing safe place, safe heaven, and a place where they are truly celebrated. We hold in our hearts are the people we hold in our hearts all the people in Odisha, India, as their hearts and bodies are breaking over a tragic train crash. We hold in our hearts all the people of Ukraine in a war that seems to have no end, and that perhaps at some moment the heart of a leader in Russia will begin to turn. May all of our joys and sorrows be held. May the Spirit of the Holy, the God of many names, who has been with us throughout the ages, remind us that each and every one, we are to be celebrated, and we are loved and accepted. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.
I invite you to come back to this room and join us in singing this poem based on an Aztec poem. Singer of life, all flowers are songs. The choir will sing the first verse. Please join us in the second verse. The words are printed in your order of service.
joy. What a joy. Didn't I tell you that it was awesome? I told him I had the gift of seeing into the future and that it would be awesome, and it was wonderful. Have you ever meditated on a flower? I mean, just to take one flower, maybe it's a carnation, maybe it's a begonia, maybe, a daisy, and just meditate on it. The delicacy, the intricacy, the gorgeous, incredible details. It can transport, transcend. Have you ever tried that on a human being? You probably have with a baby, right? Where you just focus on the baby. Maybe a beloved. Where you just look at the details, the gorgeousness, Every daisy is better because of you. Stay with me, folks. Every daisy is better because of you. There are more puns scattered throughout this homily, so pay attention. Every daisy is better because of you. The first flower communion created by Unitarians. This is one of our few rituals, actually, that we haven't stolen from somebody else. It was created 100 years ago this year, in 1923. 100 years ago, in 1923, in Prague. It was by Unitarian minister Reverend Norbert Capek. And we'll hear more about the details of how that was created from Erica, who will tell that story later. And in this church, we began our very first flower communion or ceremony was held on June 11th of 1945. Anybody here back then? 1945? There's some long-term members, you never know. June 11th, 1945. The flowers, this is according to Kathleen Parker in her wonderful book on the history of Unitarians and Universalists. They were collected in the vestibule as people came in, and then they were brought forward, and then as people left, they were returned to the vestibule, and people took different flowers. Very similar to what we do, but now where they're in here as you come and go throughout this service. And while I was planning this service with Chris and Erica and Ellen, I found I had a resistance to using the word communion. Anybody else? Communion? Still working on that. Yeah, most of you have moved on. Well, we all have our thorny side, right? So I looked up the definition of communion, and one website said the sharing of exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings is the primary definition. The sharing of exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or spiritual level. The second definition was about the Christian ritual of the sharing of bread and wine. That surprised me. And the etymology is that it comes from late 14th century, participation in something that which is common to all, a union and religious worship, doctrine, or discipline. And from Latin, it means fellowship, mutual participation, a sharing. That's it. That's it. It's a sharing, an intimacy, a point of connection. And just like that, all my petals shifted in the wind. Communion is a sharing, an intimacy, a religious exchange. Really, it's a both and of a communion and a celebration about the incredible, beautiful details of who we are. And because I rose to the occasion, thank you, you're getting with me, I went deeper into the flower bed, and I realized that communion, this flower communion, feels like a living prayer. A living prayer. The roots of prayer come from what we know as petition, to request, to beg. Yet our human understanding of prayer has grown in this garden. Our understanding, it has expanded like an infestation, and it's grown in a relational act in this vast, beautiful world. That prayer is about a point of sharing with each other. It's about connecting with one another. And both a horizontal relationship as well as a vertical relationship with what we hold as the divine or the holy. I love that. The communion is part of the garden, and the prayer is part of the rain and the sunshine and the soil, nurturing us. Humans often forget, I think, about the importance of that vertical transcendent experience of who we are, where we find both depth and a lifting. We find substance, refreshing waters that replenish us when we find that our heart and our soul and mind have started to get dry, and we need rain on our bodies and souls. This is what Norbert Capek was trying to address when he was faced with his congregation that had rejected all these religious symbols. And he needed to bring life back into his congregation. They had lost their connection with one another through a common ritual and that transcendent experience of life's energy. The poet and author Kathleen Norris, she writes that something similar happened within the Protestant movement in the mid-20th century. As the Protestant movement was really committed to creating a social gospel movement, commitment to social justice. And in that drive, they pushed aside a lot of rituals that were part of their services, including personal prayer. It was discouraged. And in fact, it was seen as personal prayer was selfish. It was putting one's personal needs above the needs of the other. Unitarians got caught up in this as well. Through the mid-20th century, as we had a strong commitment to the humanist movement and rejection of things like prayer and other forms of liturgical components of our worship. That personal spiritual life at that time, for Protestants and for Unitarians, it went underground into the garden. It went into the soil. And many of our religious communities began to lose an important part of their moral compass that comes from communal prayer. That prayer, when done in community, when done as a ritual act, is an emotional-based reminder of how much we rely on one another, of how much we need one another, and that connection and that sharing. The flower communion is a lifeblood for us. Through all these years of doing it in this community since 1945, it's become a stabilizer in unstable times. It's a source of intelligence for us in our collective body. We are divine creations, and this is a symbolic act to remind ourselves of our beauty and our capacity as a source of love. We need to put our tulips together. So Norris writes that while personal prayer may on some level be personal as if in a need, it's also a prayer that moves outward, and it manifests, it metamorphosizes into a source of gratitude, compassion, and generosity, a vision of health and wholeness and a place of safety for those who are marginalized and continually oppressed simply for being who they are. This is a ritual act, a living prayer. It is also a celebration, a place where we can say to one another, a peony for your thoughts. I couldn't resist. So Norbert Capek, think about this extraordinary human being. He's existing in an era that came out of World War I. Dark, bland, empty time. And he needed to create a ritual where people could create and connect with one another, of intimacy, of reminding about the beauty and life, of our needs, of our creativity, and our strengths. So Capek, as a visionary minister, He was ahead of his time in Prague. He created a bold church of over 1,000 people, and they began to think beyond their own doors about what was possible for their city and their whole country. It was a church that was willing to take risks. And they made difficult decisions, but they kept to it. They built a church that's still there, and they built a world that they could live in. And then, unfortunately, World War II. In 1942, Capek was arrested. He was accused by the Nazis of listening to foreign broadcasts, and he was sent to Dachau. And even there, in those horrendous circumstances, he created a flower communion with his fellow prisoners. Even in the dirt and the weeds of a camp, wherever they could find some sign of life, he brought them together in an act of defiance and claiming of resilience, that there is beauty beyond themselves and a world out there and in here. Norbert Capek died in Dachau, but his spirit, his courage, his commitment live on today with our flower communion, our ritual act. His wife, Maha, survived, and she moved to the United States, and she brought the flower communion ceremony to the Unitarian Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1940. And 5 years later, this church began this ritual, a living prayer. It's not a historical reenactment. It is a reminder of how much we need one another, how much we rely on one another. And no matter what, I will think of you every daisy. May it be so, and amen. Erica, I can't see you, but I know you're there.
I appreciated something new about the story this year, learning about Norbert Capek. So, as Reverend Kate told you, Norbert Capek was a Unitarian minister, and he had a long history of being a minister in a Baptist church long before that. But eventually, he became a Unitarian and went back to his home country, Czechoslovakia. And what do we know about Czechoslovakia? Hard to say. Anyway, all right, I thought some of you might know that one. It's not really true anymore. So he went back to Czechoslovakia, and what stands out to me is I knew that when he was looking for a ritual to bring his people together, see, they all believed different things. They didn't want to go back to what they had been before, but they couldn't agree on stuff. And the Christian communion, where they did the bread and the wine, much like it can be here, was just, it didn't give them a good feeling. You know, it was just causing conflict with each other rather than harmony. So he had to think of something else. And he turned to the countryside. He turned to nature. He turned to nature. And I'm just find that really powerful, because he found direct inspiration, you might say, from the divine by looking at nature. And he looked at all these flowers, and he saw that they're all different and they're all beautiful. And he asked people to each bring a flower, pick a flower. The picking of the flower was important because everybody sees beauty differently. So people who picked a flower picked the one that they liked, their own unique way of looking at the world. He asked them to bring those flowers and then to place them in the front. And the placing of the flowers has significance. This is the part that I learned this year. By putting the flowers there, people were symbolizing that we chose to come here of our own free will. I'm different from so many of you, but I'm going to put my flower here because this represents my choice to be here with you in communion. And then, of course, at the end, they were asked to take a flower and take a different one than the one that they brought. Now, before they took a flower, the flowers were blessed. And so when they took a flower, that had significance. They were exercising their own free will and saying, I accept this gift that somebody else brought who is different from me and the blessing that comes with them. Isn't that beautiful? So I just feel like I have a new appreciation for that this year, that every bit of the flower communion was really a spiritual act. And he continued that, as Kate said, in imprisonment. Wherever they could find it, weeds and flowers, they continued that. And here we are 100 years later or so doing the same thing. Is that not the power of life?
We're going to invite the choir to come forward first, but the idea is that you will come forward and take a different flower home, because we bring certain gifts and we receive different gifts when we leave every time from this community, in that exchange, that free will exchange. And let us all bless these flowers with our blessings of love and sustenance and celebration and resilience, the gift of life, the gift of beauty, as we all bless these flowers. Do you want the choir to come forward first? And again, if you didn't bring a flower, that's fine. We have extra flowers because we have extra love. It's boundless. And I do invite you to please take the real flowers that are in the baskets as opposed to the silk flowers that are in the vases. They're beautiful, but yeah. Thanks.
El sol comienza a declinar y las flores que son perezosas no se quieren despertar. Los narcisos visten siempre de gala, las violetas lucen su color. Los azares y las azucenas solo hablan del amor. Las orugas y las rosas siempre tienden a reír, las dulces margaritas nunca saben qué decir. Nos enseñan cosas bellas las flores, de romance saben un sinfín. Hay diles y se habla de amores, siempre en las fiestas del jardín. Es la fiesta del jardín por las tardes, cuando el sol comienza a declinar y las flores que son perezosas no se quieren despertar. Los narcisos visten siempre de gala, las violetas lucen su color. Los azares y las azucenas solo hablan del amor. Las orugas y las rosas siempre tienden a reñir, y las dulces margaritas nunca saben qué decir. Nos enseñan cosas bellas las flores, de romance saben un sinfín. Hay idilios y se habla de amores, siempre en las fiestas del jardín.
I invite you now to please rise in body and spirit. Let us sing together, I Know This Rose Will Open. Our introduction and instrumental accompaniment is provided by Mary Dennison this morning. Unfortunately, she was left off of the program, my fault, but we are so thrilled to have her and fortunate to have her. I Know This Rose Will Open. We will sing it 3 times, once all together in unison and twice as a round.
I invite you to stay standing as you're able as we extinguish our chalice. The words are found in our heart as well as the program. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I think Chris is calling the choir forward. As you go forth into this world, Iris, you all the happiness in the world. Return again with magnolias. Blessed be.